The luxurious mansion, surrounded by impeccable gardens and imposing gates, looked like something out of a fairy tale. It was the symbol of the empire built by Fernando, a wealthy and admired businessman. He had achieved everything he ever wanted: fame, fortune, and an impeccable reputation. In everyone's eyes, his life was perfect. But what dark secret was lurking behind this perfect facade? Stay tuned to Black Voices to find out. That sunny morning, as Fernando finished his coffee and read the newspaper on his balcony, fate began to prepare one of the most remarkable days of his life. "Good morning, my love," said his wife, Beatriz, with a sweet smile. She was wearing an elegant silk robe and holding a cup of coffee, watching her husband with sparkling eyes. On the outside, she looked like the perfect companion, but there was something in her gaze that Fernando, absorbed in his daily worries, didn't notice. "You have that important meeting today, right?" "Yes, it's crucial for the company's next steps," Fernando replied confidently, without imagining that those words would mark the beginning of a sinister plan. Could Fernando's trust in his loved ones lead to his downfall? Keep watching Black Voices to uncover the shocking truth. While he was adjusting his tie before leaving, Beatriz met Fernando's brother, Daniel, in a discreet cafe in the less busy part of town. "Is everything ready?" she asked, her voice low and urgent. Daniel nodded, his eyes reflecting a calculated coldness. "Yes, I've already adjusted the brakes on his car. He'll have no idea what's happened until it's too late." The plan was simple but deadly. Beatriz and Daniel were united by something more than greed. They shared a burning desire to eliminate Fernando and take his fortune. No one would suspect, they thought. Fernando's death would seem like a tragic and inevitable accident. But what they didn't know was that Clara, an 11-year-old homeless girl, had heard everything. She was hiding in the corner of the parking lot, seeking shelter from the rain of the night before. Her large, attentive eyes absorbed every word of that cold, cruel dialogue. Her mind, already trained by the harsh reality of the streets, knew that she couldn't ignore what she had just heard. As Beatriz and Daniel left the cafe, sure that their plan was infallible, Clara stood there, trembling but determined. She had to find Fernando and warn him, even if it meant risking everything. The next morning, Clara woke up early and went to the gate of Fernando's mansion. Her presence seemed out of place in the elegant surroundings. Her hair was messy, and her clothes, a worn-out dress, showed that she belonged to a very different world from Fernando's. Even so, she waited. When she finally saw Fernando's car approaching, she ran towards it, waving desperately. "Wait! Don't drive," shouted Clara, her voice shaky but full of urgency. Fernando, confused, braked abruptly, lowering the window to face the girl. "What's going on? Who are you?" he asked impatiently. "Please, sir, I know you don't know me, but your life is in danger," said Clara, panting. "They've sabotaged your car's brakes. Your wife and brother want you to die." Fernando's expression turned from irritation to disbelief. "What are you saying? This is ridiculous. Please, just check the brakes before you drive. I heard everything." "I'm not lying," insisted Clara, with tears in her eyes. The desperation in the girl's voice shook Fernando. He hesitated, but something in her expression convinced him to listen. "Wait here," he said, as he called his mechanic to inspect the car. Clara's words soon proved true. The mechanic returned with a pale face and wide eyes. "The brakes have been sabotaged, sir. If you'd been driving, you probably wouldn't be alive right now." The truth fell for Fernando, and a whirlwind of emotion swept over him: shock, betrayal, anger, but above all, gratitude for the girl who, even without knowing him, had saved his life. He approached Clara, kneeling down to her level. "Why did you do it? Why risk so much for someone you don't even know?" Clara looked at him with eyes full of determination. "Because it was the right thing to do. I know what it's like to have no one to look after you. I couldn't keep quiet and let it happen." The girl's sincerity touched Fernando deeply. He knew that the next step would be crucial. Beatriz and Daniel could not go unpunished, but to unmask them, he would need Clara and an ingenious plan. Fernando took a deep breath and looked Clara in the eye. "You had the courage to save me. Now I need your help to save my life for good. Are you with me?"
Clara nodded with determination. "I'm with you." Fernando led Clara into the mansion, still trying to process what he had just discovered. The weight of the betrayal by Beatriz, the woman he had loved and trusted, and Daniel, his own brother, seemed to crush his soul. Sitting in the living room, he held his head with his hands while Clara restlessly looked around, trying not to touch the spotless furniture. "Are you sure about everything you've heard?" asked Fernando, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I am, sir. They talked about the brakes, about how it would look like an accident, and I heard your wife say that the money would be all hers and that you were just an obstacle in the way," Clara replied firmly, the memory of Beatriz's cold words still echoing in her mind. Fernando felt a chill run down his spine. He knew he couldn't act impulsively, but he couldn't let it go either. "Clara, I need you to tell me exactly what you saw and heard." "Every detail could be important," he said, with a new determination in his eyes. Clara began to describe the scene in the parking lot, Beatriz's calculated tone of voice, Daniel's gestures, their satisfied expression as they plotted their plan. Her every word was like a stab to Fernando's heart, but he knew he had to listen. After a few minutes of silence, he finally said, "We're not going to confront them now. If they think I'm inattentive, that's how they'll get caught." "But what are we going to do?" asked Clara, worried. Fernando stood up, his posture now firm and determined. "We'll turn the tables. They planned an accident, so let's make them believe that the plan worked." Clara's eyes widened. "Pretend you're dead? How is that going to work?" Fernando explained that he would need help to create a convincing scene. He would make Beatriz and Daniel believe that he had suffered a fatal accident, and this would lead them to let their guard down, revealing their true intentions. Clara, despite still being a child, showed impressive maturity. She didn't hesitate to accept the plan. "You're going to help me keep this a secret," said Fernando. "No one can know, not the house staff, not family, friends, just the two of us." That night, Fernando began to put the plan into practice. He called a trusted lawyer and asked him to review his will. "If anything happens to me, Beatriz and Daniel should get nothing," he said firmly. The lawyer was puzzled but knew that Fernando didn't make requests for no reason. Meanwhile, Clara remained hidden in one of the guest rooms, observing the comings and goings of the house and trying not to attract attention. Despite her difficult life on the streets, she had never been in such a luxurious place, but to her surprise, the grandiose surroundings brought no comfort. The weight of tension and betrayal hung in the air. The next day, Fernando announced that he was going on a business trip, something he did often and would not arouse suspicion. Beatriz, with her sly smile, wished him a safe trip. "Take care, darling," she said, lightly touching his shoulder, while inside, she was already celebrating the imminent success of her plan. Fernando got into the car he had specially prepared for the day. Clara accompanied him, hidden in the back seat, protected by a blanket so that no one would see her. They drove to a deserted road, where Fernando had arranged with a mechanic to create the scene of the accident. The car was equipped with devices that simulated a controlled fire. When the moment arrived, Fernando and Clara got out of the vehicle before activating the mechanism. The flames rose quickly, consuming the car and creating a realistic scene of destruction. "Now we just have to wait," said Fernando, watching the car burn, his voice calm, but Clara noticed the sadness in his eyes. He was about to abandon his life as he knew it, even if only temporarily, in order to expose the truth. As the news of Fernando's death spread, Beatriz and Daniel began to show their true colors. The next day, Clara and Fernando, who were now hiding out in a simple house on the outskirts of town, received information from one of Fernando's loyal employees. "Beatriz is acting as if she's in mourning, but she's already mentioned the will to the lawyer," said the employee. She and Daniel seemed more relieved than sad. Fernando closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He knew it was only a matter of time before they fell into their own trap. Beatriz was in the main room of the mansion when the lawyer arrived to discuss the will. Dressed in black with a delicate scarf in her hands, she looked every inch the devastated widow. Her eyes were red, but Fernando knew, from wherever he was watching, that there were no sincere tears behind that mask. Daniel, for his part, remained silent, but the discreet smile at the corner of his lips gave away the satisfaction behind his respectful facade. "I still can't believe he's gone," Beatriz lamented in a voice laden with staged sadness,
but life must go on, and there are many responsibilities to sort out. I want to make sure that everything goes according to my dear husband's wishes." The lawyer, an experienced man who had seen it all, showed no emotion as he opened the will. Beatrice and Daniel looked at each other discreetly, certain that they were about to reap the rewards of their conspiracy.
What they didn't know was that Fernando had redrafted the document just a few days before the alleged accident.
"Well," began the lawyer, adjusting his glasses, "there are some important clauses we need to discuss."
Beatrice leaned forward, slightly anxious.
Daniel crossed his arms, trying to look disinterested, but the tension in his jaw showed his anticipation. Clara, hidden in a strategic spot outside the room, watched everything through a crack. Fernando had insisted that she be present. "I need someone to see for themselves," he had said. "First of all," continued the lawyer, "the will has recently been updated. According to the new provisions, in the event of a suspicious or accidental death, all assets and property will be frozen until an investigation is completed." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink into the room. Beatrice's face paled.
"Investigation? But that's unnecessary. The accident was as clear as day."
"There's nothing to investigate," she protested, her voice trembling slightly. "That's what the will states," replied the lawyer, impassive. "In addition, there is a specific clause which mentions that in the event of any indication of conspiracy or bad faith, the designated beneficiaries will be immediately disqualified." Daniel shifted in his chair, now visibly uncomfortable. "This is ridiculous.
Fernando has never suspected anyone."
"Why would he do something like that?" he asked, trying to disguise his irritation. "Those were his instructions," replied the lawyer. "Now we need to wait for the results of the investigation before any assets are transferred." Beatrice tried to keep her composure, but her face was now marked by frustration. "That doesn't make sense," she muttered to Daniel, but Clara, from where she stood, could see the anger hidden in her words. Their perfect plan was starting to fall apart, and they both knew it.
Meanwhile, Fernando watched everything from afar, following Clara's and the lawyer's accounts.
He knew that the next step would be essential to unmasking the pair once and for all. "They're trapped," he told Clara as they both planned their final move, "but they'll still try something. People like them never accept defeat easily." And Fernando was right. That same evening, Beatrice and Daniel met secretly in the office of the mansion. "We have to find a way around this," said Beatrice, her voice heavy with despair.
"We can't let it all go to waste now."
"Maybe it's time we disappeared for a while," suggested Daniel, but Beatrice shook her head, her eyes shining with determination. "No, not until we're sure there's no other way out.
There's still something we can do. We need to find the original will and destroy it. If there's no evidence of the update, everything goes back to the way it was before." Clara, who was once again eavesdropping, wasted no time.
She ran to the phone that Fernando had left with her and called him, quickly whispering what she had just heard. "They're desperate. They're planning to destroy the will," she said.
"Good," Fernando replied, a tone of relief in his voice. "That's what we need.
Now is the perfect time to act. Get ready, Clara, the truth is about to come out." Fernando contacted the authorities, handing them the evidence he had gathered with the help of Clara and the lawyer.
He knew he had to act quickly to prevent Beatrice and Daniel from destroying any evidence.
However, the plan had to be perfect, and the execution had to be precise. The next morning, while Beatrice and Daniel were frantically searching the mansion's office for the original will, Fernando entered through the front door, accompanied by 2 policemen. His presence was like lightning in a clear sky, unexpected and devastating. Beatrice froze at the sight of him, her face contorted in a mixture of surprise and terror.
"Fernando," she murmured, unable to believe her eyes, "are you alive?"
Fernando stopped in the doorway, his eyes fixed on them both. "Surprised to see me?" he asked, his voice carrying a dangerous calm. "I hope so, because I know exactly what you two were planning." Fernando entered the office with an imposing stance, his voice firm and his eyes fixed on Beatrice and Daniel.
"Did you really think you could get away with this?"
He held up a folder full of documents while the policeman followed him closely. Beatrice took a step back, her lips trembling.
"Fernando, you don't understand.
It's not what it looks like. She tried desperately to formulate an excuse, but her voice sounded fragile and unconvincing.
Oh, it's not what it looks like?
Fernando retorted, his voice laced with irony. Then explain why you and my brother were planning to sabotage my car's brakes in order to kill me. He threw the folder on the table, causing the papers to scatter, evidence, statements, recorded conversations, all here. Daniel tried to argue, raising his hands as if to pacify the situation.
Fernando, you have to understand, I was confused. She manipulated me. Manipulated?
Fernando approached him, his gaze icy. You're adult enough to make your own decisions, Daniel.
Don't blame her. You're both to blame. Beatriz, realizing there was no escape, let her mask drop.
So what? She shouted, despair finally spilling over.
You never really cared about me.
All you ever loved was your company, your money. I was tired of being invisible, of living in the shadow of your ambition.
Fernando took a deep breath, holding back the anger that threatened to explode. And that was your solution? Plan my death, taking away everything I built with hard work?
You've let me down in ways I never imagined possible, Beatriz.
The police intervened, putting handcuffs on Beatriz and Daniel.
She struggled against the restraint, her eyes full of fury. You can destroy me, but you'll never have what really matters, Fernando.
You'll always be alone.
Fernando remained silent, letting her words echo in the air as the policeman led the two of them out. He looked at Clara, who had been watching everything closely with wide eyes. Are you all right, Clara? He asked, his voice now soft. She nodded, but her eyes were watery.
You made it. They can't hurt you anymore. Fernando put a hand on her shoulder. I couldn't have done it without you.
Your warning saved me, and I'll never forget it. Over the next few days, Fernando worked to reorganize his life. Beatriz and Daniel's betrayal left deep scars, but it also made room for something new. He decided it was time to repay Clara for her act of courage. One morning, while they were having coffee in the mansion's kitchen, he put a proposal on the table. Clara, he began, looking directly at her, you have a strength that few people possess.
You risked everything to help me, even without knowing me.
I want to offer you something I've never had the courage to offer anyone, a home.
I want you to be part of my family.
Clara was silent for a moment, tears streaming silently down her face.
I've never had a real family. Are you serious? Fernando smiled. I've never been so serious.
I want you to have the opportunities you've never had, and I want to learn from you, from your courage and your kindness. Over time, Clara became more than an ally, she became a daughter to Fernando. He enrolled her in a prestigious school, but more than that, he offered her something that money couldn't buy: love, security, and support. Meanwhile, Beatriz and Daniel faced the consequences of their actions. They were tried and convicted, their actions finally exposed to the world. Fernando, for his part, chose to move on without resentment, but with a renewed determination to build a meaningful life. This story shows us that courage and honesty can transform even the most difficult situations.
Have you ever witnessed or experienced an act of bravery that changed everything?
Share it with us in the comments and subscribe to Black Voices for more inspiring stories like this one.
Don't forget to leave your like and send this video to someone who needs a little hope today. See you next time.